present to you Phamaly. Take it away.
After losing his parents in a terrifying rhinoceros accident, James ends up alone in an orphanage with only his memories of his parents.
Where do you go when you're flying away? Where do you go when they can't make you stay? Over the garden and scraping the tops of the trees. On your way home, on your way home. And when you get there, is it perfect? And when you get there, is a family waiting for you? I close my eyes and see them laughing, telling jokes, playing games. All of it true. How would they feel if your friend James came along too? Where do you go when you start to feel sad? Everyone's gone, no more mum, no more dad. Tucked in the clouds, is there somewhere you won't be alone? And when you get there, is it perfect? And when you get there, is one waiting for you? May I hold on to your wings and come to on your way home?
He soon meets or learns that he has two opportunist aunties, Spiker
and Sponge. They kick him out of the orphanage, and he has to go live with his aunties. They lock him in the cellar, and they make him do all their dirty work, including chopping down the wretched old peach tree.
And he then meets a mysterious man with a book full of strange ingredients.
So it's okay. Why are you screaming?
To get your undivided attention. What's inside the book, James?
It's full of recipes with very strange ingredients.
No, not recipes, potions, tonics, spells. Now, we must pick a spell from the book, devour the potion, and remarkable, unbelievable things will happen to you. Open wide and crawl inside the skin of something new. If you believe what's up my sleeve, I'll spin a spell for you. Now sippity sip, a magical trip, your troubles all skipping town. Once the bubbling broth is frothing thick, gobble it quickly down. Shake it up, shake it up.
Shake it up, shake it up.
Mix around and around.
Mix around and around.
Hear that bop, that piping, popping sound. Give it a twist and a turn.
Give it a twist and a turn.
Let it brim, let it burn.
Let it brim, let it burn.
We're gonna whip that potion up and gobble it down, gobble it down. All right, James, what's it gonna be?
I choose this one. Slithering crocodile tongues.
Ooh, connoisseur. First, we need some of these. Exactly 10 hairs from your head into the bag they go. Now, we'll stick the rest of the ingredients in here. Got it?
Got it.
Ha ha ha! Milkweed milk, a strand of silk, a rare Asaki juice, 2 raven claws for tiger paws, the marrow of a moose. And then add to our soup tarantula poop, the tiniest scoop will do. And plop in a drop of sloppy joe made from chopped up kangaroo. Shake it up, shake it up.
Shake it up, shake it up.
Mix around and around.
Mix around and around.
Hear that bop, that piping, popping sound. Give it a twist and a
Give
turn.
it a twist and a turn.
Let it brim, let it burn.
Let it brim, let it burn.
We're gonna whip that potion up
Then
and gobble it down, gobble it down.
Look, there are green things wiggling in the bag.
Those are the slithering crocodile tongues. Which means the magic is working!
And then James finds himself stuck inside the peach with a bunch of human-sized insects and leaving his dastardly aunties peachless and with nothing to do but to pick up the pieces and move on.
Seems like we lost everything. Sponges everything, really. What have we got?
You thought you could ride on the fruits of your dreams, but you couldn't. So what?
You thought life would glide just like peaches and creams, but it wouldn't. Who cares?
No paparazzi ask you to pose.
You want a new yacht? You can't buy one of those.
That's the way your new life goes, but in the end, you still got your best friend. And I got you. You! Who can replace the Frankenstein face? You know that it's true. I got you. You got breath like goat manure.
You smell like a bloody sewer.
You are just the right wrongdoer for me. So glad to know ya. All right, so you lost all you had, and though you had quite a lot, it's in tatters.
Move on.
Get over yourself. It's dreadful and sad till you realize you got what still matters. What still matters?
My figure, my cheekbones, my radiant youth.
Voluptuous curves and my solid gold tooth. But the very scary truth is that she means the most to me. I love you, sis. So glad I got you to love and to share. It's part of a pair. Through thin and through thick, we'll stick to our stick. Always true to you, you, I got you.
Away from his nasty aunts, James goes on a journey with the peach insects, which includes a grasshopper, centipede, earthworm, spider, and a ladybug. Throughout their adventures, James and the insects help each other, and when James feels alone without his parents, Ladybug reminds him that his parents will always be with him.
James, your parents are with you always.
They are?
Of course they are. Someone leaves, who knows why, and you never said goodbye. But once we go, we're not gone. We keep living on and on. She whispers in the breeze, he's waving from a star. They are with you everywhere that you are. Ooh. Left your world all too soon, is in the moon. There she smiles, beaming proud. See her laughing in that cloud. And when you feel alone, love is never far. They are with you everywhere that you are. In the music of the forest, in the waves against the sands, from the heavens to the freckles on your hand. Nothing's lost once you've found there in every breath and sound. When you're brave, when you're true, that's the part of them in you. And if you just believe, it's beautifully bizarre how they're with you everywhere that you are. Feel them there and everywhere, in everything that you are. Ooh.
Finally, the peach destroyed Spiker and Sponge, leaving James and his friends to go on living together in peachy, keen harmony.
Right before your eyes, the curtains are closing, it's time to go. Right before your eyes, if you were dozing, you missed quite a show. Say your last goodbyes right before your eyes.
Down! Up! Sound move!
We'll do one more.
One more. Up! Down! Up!
So I have a question to kind of get us started. How did you guys end up joining Phamaly?
I attended a show about 8 years ago called Sideshow, and our current artistic director, Reagan Linton, was in the show, and she invited me to audition. And I guess my claim to fame, I didn't start acting until after I was 50, so it shows you it's never too late to start a new career.
I joined Phamaly because one of my coworkers had seen me in a production of The Mikado out at Civic Center Park. And she happened to be on the board of Phamaly at the time, and she said, "Wow, do you have a disability?" And I'm like, "Well, does learning disabilities count?" She says, "Let me get back to you on that." Well, they count, and here I am. Of course, I've acquired a couple more disabilities like anxiety and depression since then, but hey, I'm still here.
So, Phamaly's 2013 production of Fiddler on the Roof, they needed another violinist, and so my mom got an email saying they needed another violinist, and so my brother auditioned. I wasn't able because I wasn't diagnosed with a disability yet. The next year I got diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, and I auditioned for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I got in, And since then, I have also acquired central auditory processing disorder.
I got started with the company through a family friend because I got diagnosed out here with Fragile X, anxiety, a few other things. And I auditioned, and here I am now.
I auditioned probably about 20 years ago. I had done a little bit of community theater in Chicago, and a friend of mine at dinner one day, she said, "Have you heard of a group called Phamaly?" Because I wanted to get back into theater, and I said no, and I came out and, I called for the audition, and they said, "Oh, we're sorry, it's too late, the auditions have already happened, but if you can come tonight at 7 o'clock, it's callbacks, and we'll see your audition." So I did come, I did make it, they did call me and cast me in the show, and that was in 1995. And I haven't done every year since, but most.
Show of hands, how many people know that Linda is blind? Not too many of you. Isn't that amazing? She's one of our most amazing actresses that can get around stage and sing the way she does. Did you want to tell them a little bit about your disability, Linda?
Yeah, I have a retinal condition. It's called Leber's congenital amaurosis. And from the time I was very small, I had about light perception. I could see some big objects, but not very much more. And so when I do theater, of course, my parents always said, "Oh, you can't act. What if you bump into the furniture? What if you fall off the stage?" And of course, those are the things that I work hardest on, not bumping into the furniture, but trying to avoid bumping into the furniture. But I'm a very quick study, I memorize easily, so I spend most of my rehearsals working on the blocking and the staging and the movements and the dancing, and I just love it. And I remember my mother telling me years ago, "There is no such thing as a blind actress, Linda." And I said, "Now there is."
Does anybody else have any specific questions that they'd like to ask?
Oh, come on, guys, don't be shy. Bueller.
She have-
I think all of you are just amazing. You put your voice in such unique and interesting sort of ways. So by the way that you put your voice in the room, what is it that you hope people learn from this experience?
Well, one of the greatest things, again, Linda's been acting a lot longer than I have, is when somebody comes up and says, "You know, I went to your show, and after 10 minutes, I forgot that all of you were disabled. All I saw was acting. All I heard was the story." And that's the greatest compliment we can have, is shutting off those perceptions once we get on stage and they're listening to the music and they're listening to the story, and the wheelchair doesn't mean anything, a walking cane means nothing. It's the professionalism and the enjoyment of the show.
And I think we also inspire other people that are in our audiences that may have a disability that don't think they could be up on stage. There is one particular actress that we have with bipolar disorder, and she was having a difficult time, and her family came to one of our shows, and it just so happened that the main actress on stage had bipolar disorder, and this young lady who was like 11 saw it in the program, and she says, "Mom, look, she has the same thing I do. If she can do it, I can do it." And the next year she was in the show.
Also that, something that I learned personally, that we may perceive that we have limitations. However, Phamaly is a theater company that allows us to work around those and to transcend them. And so, yeah, pretty much in Phamaly, the sky's the limit. Well, not even the limit. We can go beyond the stars.
The funniest story I remember was one of our actors called his name is Don Mock, and he was working at the Fox Theater, and they had a show, and I can't remember which one it was, but they were determined to get him on a bike.
And they did.
Yeah, and they did. So they put him on the bike, and somebody would ring a little bell from stage. They were on stage right. He was coming out of stage left, and he literally got on the bike and rolled the bike across the stage. Now that's the kind of things Phamaly does. They don't let any barriers keep us from anybody from doing anything that they want to do. And it was really an integral part of the show, so it was great that he could do that.
Oh yeah, Phamaly can make wheelchairs fly.
We've done that before, too.
And they also make blind people dance on top of the desk.
Oh, yes.
Come on, there's got to be other
This one, I...
What is your favorite role that you've ever played?
I would have to say Fruma Sarah in Fiddler on the Roof. They had built a platform that attached to the back of a power wheelchair, and so Terry Westerman, one of our founders, was the driver of said wheelchair, and they put the skirt down over her with a panel that she could barely see through. They had to taxi us down the bombs with flashlights because she could hardly see a thing back there. But it wound up putting me at probably about 10 feet tall, and it was fun.
This is only my third production. I've been ensemble in my other two, I believe.
So James is your favorite role? Right?
Yes. although I'm pretty sure this summer Annie will come to the top of the list.
Of course, Ladybug runs a close second.
For me, I have two. I did Agnes Gooch in Maine, which I loved, and then I did Glenda in The Wiz, and I loved that role too.
I would say Spiker, yes, is my favorite role thus far, because it's completely opposite of myself, and it's really helped, playing her has helped me be more confident. So she's definitely a favorite.
I played Owen in The Foreigner. If anybody knows that show, it's a comedy, but unfortunately it's based on a bigot from the South. So we had to shave all my hair off and put a muscle shirt on with fatigues and an NRA hat, and I played a bigot. And it was so funny. After the show, there was some people that they were doing one of these from the, they just like, is he really like that? Because the character is really disgusting. And so sometimes playing the role, like Shannon was saying, totally opposite of you is so much fun, because you get to explore, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no one can believe that Shannon plays mean Auntie Spiker, because she's so sweet.
It's a shame you guys didn't see the show with all the costumes, because she's like, she's about 4 inches taller, and she's got this diamond dress that makes her look even taller.
Yeah, it's purple,
so if you ever read the book,
zigzags.
Zigzags going down.
And the shoes, the red shoes,
yeah.
they're like this tall.
Yeah, this high. Yeah.
I see a hand back there.
So a connected question to that one, what would be your dream role in any production? What would you love to do?
I know. I would love to do Mama Morton in Chicago.
See that? I have two. I would like to do Eponine in Les Mis, and then Into the Woods, either like Cinderella or Little Red.
I don't know. I have two. Really, one of them is Angelica in Hamilton, and the second one is Ava in Evita.
Yeah, I kind of have two as well. I would love to be Fontaine in Les Mis, but what was the other one? Occasionally my brain kind of butts ends with my mouth, so I'm going to have to go on to him, and I'll tell you the second one in a minute here.
I think that's the beauty of theater, is that we don't know what we're doing from year to year. Like, for instance, Phamaly will be announcing their shows for 2017-18 in about 6 weeks. So that, to me, I know I'm not answering the question, but that's the joy I get out of it, is the research. Because as soon as they name the show, I've got to go to the library, I've got to get the script, whatever movies are related to it, and I study for about 2 months before I decide to audition. Because I want to feel comfortable with that role. Because if I see a show and it's like, if I don't feel that explosion inside me, then I'm not going to audition. So, but I would probably want to do like Oscar on The Odd Couple, or some silly thing, because unfortunately I sometimes get typecast in being the bad guy because I'm older, and sometimes I like doing those comedy bits that are a little off cue. So.
Okay, now I remember it, Mama Rose from Gypsy.
But I think all of us really love doing the touring shows. For some of us, this is our first touring show. For some of us, we've been in other ones. But the wonderful thing about the touring shows as James is that we get to go to schools and venues all over the state of Colorado and really play to kids and just let kids know, you can be up here too, you know, and ask them, you know, how many of you have a disability? How many of you know other folks with disabilities? How many of you want to be up here? You know, and just really influencing their perceptions about all of us and realizing that, yeah, we may do things differently, but we still do what we want to do.
We've done about 25 shows and have performed in front of 20,000 kids, so we feel really proud about that.
So you guys are truly inspirational in the work that you do, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. What inspires you, or who inspires you, and what are some of your goals and objectives through this vehicle, if not other vehicles in this world, would you like to pass on or achieve?
Well, I work for a disability nonprofit, and if you go back into the history of the disability movement, the only time the disability communities really progress is when somebody's put their foot down. So there was a guy named Roberts, I can't think what was his first name, Ed Roberts. Yeah. It was back in the 70s, and he wanted to go to the University of California. And he sent in his transcripts, and he was a straight A student, brilliant. He shows up, and he's a quadriplegic, and they didn't know what to do with him. This is in the 70s. So they were very kind. They showed him around the campus, and then he says, "Where are the dorms?" And he said, "Sorry, sir, we don't have dorms for people like you." So that started kind of like the independent living movement, because what he did is him and about 4 other people with disabilities rented a house. They got a nurse, you know, an attendant to come in to help them, and they were some of the very first students at Berkeley to actually be able to go to school and get a degree and be on campus. So I would say Ed Roberts was kind of like my mentor.
Well, I would say, since I've known her, which has been a long time, our executive artistic director. She has been professionalism from the get-go and just is very inspiring to me because she doesn't let anything be a barrier to her. Mm-hmm. Nothing at all, despite the fact that she uses a wheelchair. She is very much a go-getter, and yeah, she's awesome, to use an overused word. Yeah.
No, thanks. I'll pass on this one.
No.
To me, you know, some of our folks in Phamaly were born, like myself, I was born with a disability. But some of our folks are not born with a disability. They acquire them through illness, injury, accidents, especially motor vehicle accidents, and or, you know, very sudden, traumatic, unexpected things that happen. You're going along living your life and all of a sudden, boom, everything changes. And I don't know that I have a specific person that I would say was a role model, but I have a phrase that I live by. And that is, in our lifetimes, change is inevitable, growth is optional, and patience is necessary.
It looks like there's one back there.
I was just wondering if kind of all the roles that there are, like production roles, are those also filled by people with disabilities? Like, you know, like people who do like, I don't know, sound and stuff.
We're getting there. We do have interns that have disabilities that are learning different crafts. It's something that we're very open to.
And moving toward.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of theaters, you know, a lot of programs. I wonder if you have any insight or suggestions
Well, that's an interesting question because this theater right here is unique. One of the founders of Phamaly, Greg Vigil, attended Metro State. And before this was built, they kind of collaborated with him. And if I'm not mistaken, most of the catwalks and stuff that needs to be done by stage managers and stuff is all wheelchair accessible. I mean, this is a very unique stage, and that's a great question. There are some places where it's very difficult, and so we have to kind of do reconnaissance when we do go to theaters for a full production. Unfortunately, when we go to the schools, sometimes that's not always the most optimum places. We've actually changed in small little bathrooms. That was our dressing room, and we had to avoid the stage because they couldn't get me up there. We would actually just perform on a cafeteria floor. So, you know, we would hope by visiting these schools, maybe some of the light bulb will go off and say, you know, we really need to catch up with the ADA and get some of these schools retrofitted. Anybody else?
I just think for me, when I go into a place, I always need to become familiar with it, you know, walk the stage. Every time we do a show, the stages are always different. They're different sizes, and so walking it, learning distances for me and where our set pieces are placed can be different from venue to venue. So for me, I just need the time to be able to walk through it and know where I'm going and know that I'm going to be okay. And I remember one show that I was in, there was a production manager who was very strict. You know, when at a certain time, you know, I don't want the actors on stage. After they do their warm-ups, they're off stage. They're in the dressing rooms. And I would go out one night and start walking, and he'd yell at me and he'd say, "Why are you out here?" And I'd say, "Because I need to walk the set before the curtain opens so that I know, so that I feel comfortable." Even though I had been there the last week, and he was yelling and screaming at me and saying, "No, you can't be out here." And finally, I went to the director and I said, "You know, I have a problem. You know I need to walk the set." And the production manager says, "No." And so he went to the production manager and I walked the set.
Well, I really like, I like theaters that have little hidey holes backstage so that, because sometimes I have a problem focusing, and I really like to have a space where I can just be for a second so that I can compose myself and get myself into that focus zone. Because a lot of times, overwhelming stimuli have a tendency to freak me out a little bit. So, yeah.
I think it's important if you have someone, a student, or someone that has a special need, the best thing to do is say, "What do you need? How can we accommodate you?" And we do that in Phamaly all the time. At the beginning of a production, everybody will sit in a big circle and will say, "This is who I am, this is my disability, here's what I need from you to be successful, and here's what you need to know about me." And you get some very interesting comments that way, and you learn a lot about each other and how to help each other.
There's a question in the back.
Yes, yes, and yes. A lot of times when my anxiety kicks in, my memory goes completely out the window. Thankfully, I have a very, I would say, diverse vocabulary and kind of think like a thesaurus. So I've gotten to the point where I can insert something that is really, really close to what the line was, but sometimes not word for word, but I can keep the scene going.
Improv.
Yes, improv. But in memorizing, I have learned to use what's called the loci method, which is you imagine a space that's very familiar to you, and you pick different places within that space to use the different words. And my funny story with that is I chose my church, and we were learning, my church sanctuary, and we were learning Shakespearean insults. So, yeah, very memorable. So, I can still remember it was Knave, Bass, Proud, Eater of Unclean Meats, and that was actually the Jesus window. So, so I will never forget that one.
And we usually use a little extra time. If you go to a regular theater, usually their rehearsals is 2 weeks. We usually do 3 to 4, sometimes even 5 weeks. So we have a little more time to work on it. It kind of relieves that pressure. The hardest part of doing a show is getting started with rehearsals, because we work with different actors all the time, so you have to learn new personalities. Again, what are their needs? So we usually use a little extra time than a normal production company would.
I think we have about 150 to 200 folks that are in one show or another.
Do you have a desire to expand out from Denver with this model, or start other similar efforts in other cities? Or?
Well, we have done partnerships. The company went to Japan last year. What did we do? The Fantastics?
Yes.
But that was a collaboration with an educational system in Japan, and they helped fund it. But it's all about money. That's the problem. All about money.
And we would love to collaborate and support other community theater organizations that would like to do this. I mean, certainly we are ready and willing to lend a hand and provide expertise. We'd love to see this model take off in a lot of major cities. So yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I don't have a question. I just want to commend all of you guys. I am a living blind student who returned to school after 40 years, and I'm just super inspired by your stories.
Do you act? Do you act? Come see us.
We generally have auditions once to twice a year, so.
And we do have discounts for for classes. So if you have students you want to bring to family show, you get group rates and bring the kids. It's all about education, and you're exposing them to something they may never see. How many times do you see a guy in a wheelchair singing and dancing? So.
And we also get to take classes through the Denver Center for Performing Arts through Phamaly for free, and it has been a very wonderful continuing education for me as an actor. In fact, right now they're working on a Shakespearean workshop. I'm going to take the second half of it because I've had time conflicts, but I'm really looking forward to it.
And I think that's a great point, because there's a lot of actors may take them 3 or 4 years before they get on stage until they hone their skills. It's not like we just put people on stage. I mean, you have to have a certain level of skills. So getting these free classes is so important.
Yes.
These classes are $300 an hour, but yet if you were to call Phamaly and qualify with a disability, you could go to those classes for free. So if you have a child or a class, some students that have a disability and want to get involved in acting, this is a heck of an opportunity.
And building on what he said about some people take classes for 2 or 3 years before they ever get cast, we have a young man who will be cast in Annie this summer, who's been cast. And he's been in classes. He has a developmental disability. He's been in classes for 3 years, and he's tried and tried and tried. And he is so over the top now that he finally made the cut.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that it's important for you all to know is we do have audio description for vision impaired. We will generally set aside one performance for that, but if we get notice 72 hours in advance, we can provide audio description at any of the performances. We have sign interpretation for at least one performance for each show. And we also, for each show now, this is new within the last 2 years, we have a sensory-friendly performance for our folks with autism and cognitive disabilities, so that we do the show specifically for them and we make modifications. We leave the house lights on, there's no bright lights, there's no big sounds, there's no scary moments. That We try to keep the audience limited so that if the individuals need to get up and walk around the theater while we're performing, they can do that. If they need to go sit in a quiet room, that one is provided for them. We don't clap during that show. If people applaud, it's by waving their hands. It's so that there's no startling noises for some of our patrons. So that's something we're very proud of, and we do that in conjunction with the Autism Society.
We also do a tactile tour, too, for the visually impaired, so they can feel some of the props that we use and kind of get a feel for kind of behind-the-scenes type of stuff, too.
Sir.
Anyone else?
See one.
How has family influenced or impacted your life in a positive way?
We get to do theater.
It's given me a lot of opportunities. A couple of things I've done outside of families. I was able to work with the Denver Philharmonic and did a Christmas show last year where I did the narration. They came to family and said, hey, do you have an older guy that can talk? And then I just had an opportunity to audition for a motion picture with Viola Davis. Unfortunately, I didn't make the cut, but just the fact that they asked me to audition for this movie was very honoring. So it really does not only, like Linda was saying, getting on stage is such a privilege, but it opens up doors for other opportunities too.
I think that one of the things family helps us do, and which I am all about, is tearing down the stereotypes and the ideas that people have about folks that have disabilities. And I remember for myself, I was doing a community performance of a show called Wait Until Dark, and it was with a small community theater in Denver, and I played the lead who was blind in the show, and I was really excited to do that. But there was a review that came out in the paper the following week, and the critic said, well, we're not sure about the lead actress. She doesn't act blind enough.
Did you respond to that?
I was flabbergasted.
Fast? Well, I know family has impacted my life in very many levels. I've been with family, this will be nearly 14 years, and it has given me a lot of confidence and poise. It has given me a lifetime friendships, and our name is as it sounds. We are a family. Yeah, we can be a little dysfunctional sometimes, but we are each other's safety nets. We have each other's backs, and yeah, it has deeply impacted my life. And I am, for use of a cliche term, I have been changed for the better.
James, what's your line about unusual families?
Oh, yes.
We have a question over here.
I just more of a logistical question. I'm just curious about sort of how long you've been around, how big your troop is, your founders perhaps, and
Linda? Probably no more.
This is our 28th season. The company was founded in 1989 when a group of 5 students from a school that was Betcher School that no longer exists for folks with disabilities. They were used to doing drama and theater in high school, and when they got out of school, they would audition and nobody would cast them because they were in a wheelchair or they had leg prosthesis or walked with a cane or whatever. So they were sitting around one night and they said, we really like to do theater. Let's apply for a grant and form our own company. Now, they had no idea that they were going to be awarded the grant. And when they got the grant, they goes, oh my gosh, now we have to do a show. So from those 5 people sitting in somebody's living room, Phamaly was born, and this is our 28th season, and we have seen so many changes and so much growth and brought in so many new people and have changed so many lives. There's so many stories that we could tell you about individuals who have found family who were on the brink of suicide. before they found family, or who were quadriplegic and they had had an accident and they thought their life was over, and then they found family. The young lady I mentioned with the bipolar disorder. So family has been around, and we're growing and we're impacting lives, and that's who we are.
Yeah, we have about, I would say, 75 to 100 core actors, that kind of come and go as time has progressed. And and we started out just doing a summer musical. And then in 2007, we did our first non-musical, Our Town, and have done a non-musical, and then we added a sketch comedy called Vox Phamaly. We did 6 or 7 installments of that one, and we are in the process of trying to get that reworked.
It's kind of like Saturday Night Live.
Yes, it is.
Very irreverent.
Yeah, I never used the F word until I got into Vox. Stop!
We've created a monster.
One of the nice residual effects, too, is one of the founders left about 4 or 5 years ago, and she started a dance company. And it has the same concept that we use people with disabilities, but we do mix in people, professional dancers like ballerinas and people who specialize in motion. And that group is called Spoken Motion, little play on words. Spoken Motion, get it? Get it? Spoken Motion, and they've been around, this will be their 4th year, so there's an example where, that 28 years has affected something and it's expanded to dance. So we also have a dance company that does pretty much similar what Phamaly does with the acting. So.
And we also have actors who have been through Phamaly and who have gone on and now they're professional actors. Not that we're not, but they now have union cards. They belong to the Actors Union. So when we bring them back to hire them, we got to pay them big bucks.
And one now has a PhD.
Oh, wonderful.
Jason Dorwart has a PhD in theater.
Oh, wonderful.
So he's now Dr. Dorwart.
So I have one last question because we're about on time. Do you have any last final words for everybody here before you head off?
Spread the word and come see Annie. We open July 13th, and we're down at the Denver Center and at the Stage Theater, and we run for 4 weekends. Please come, bring all your friends. We really appreciate it.
And it really doesn't take a whole lot to accommodate actors who have disabilities. A lot of directors would not bat an eyelash at putting a live elephant on stage, but when you say, oh yeah, so-and-so uses a wheelchair, they go, but really, there's just a few little minor changes, and people using wheelchairs can do choreography. Yeah, they may do it a little differently, more arms and more attitude. But that's a lot of what choreography is attitude.
And if somebody had asked, how do you get your actors? And I would say 90% of it is word of mouth. Just talking to people and say, hey, have you ever tried acting? Would you be interested? Bring them to a show, especially those ones that have students. So that's, to me, the biggest thing is interconnecting and passing the word on.
Okay, well, thank you so much for performing today. And
Thank you for having us.